We're in Cape Town on the continent of Africa, the most anthropologically and religiously diverse continent in the world.
For a long time, religion has been part of the African context.
This forum is an opportunity to determine how we can continue to collectively make a difference for good.
South Africa is culturally very diverse, and I think what is very strong in South Africa is the community support.
African people are kind, loving, and share naturally.
The stage is set in South Africa. As the spotlight turns to this diverse nation hosting the G20, a powerful conversation emerges. The G20 Interfaith Forum draws together the world's religious voices, political decision makers, and community advocates.
Welcome to South Africa and Interfaith G20 conference in the beautiful city of Cape Town.
This conference has the potential, with other groups affiliated and associated with the G20, has the potential to ensure that the G20 does not forget the world's most vulnerable people. And the leadership needs to come from places like South Africa.
What I hope we can initiate, at least in small part, at the IF20 is an opportunity for exchange, dialogue, and ultimately a form of education that allows people the opportunity to see themselves in a different way because they've seen others in a more popular light.
The IF20 Forum has brought together leaders across varying disciplines, all with the common focus of promoting intercultural and interfaith harmony, dialogue, inclusion, and most importantly, action.
One of the exciting things about the Interfaith G20 Forum is it's been a very important vehicle for the world's religious leaders to come together and talk about the social issues that are important to us.
It is too vast, too others for any one people. Collectively, we have and can continue to play a vital role in being agent of change.
You can't solve a complex problem or move a complex problem like food insecurity in the right direction in isolation. You have to solve this in a global way. And one of the most powerful forces that links the world are its different faith traditions.
People of faith represent more than 80% of all people on the planet. So when we are united, working together on these challenges, as we've seen in the past, there's nothing that we cannot do.
Faith-based communities are uniquely positioned because they are so community-driven. They work on the ground, they know the people, they've built like a support system around that already. They're already part of that system. That gives them a unique perspective on what people need.
And the simple matter of fact is that religious communities do contribute to the public good, and this is more about an opportunity for the world to notice that. And IF20 provides an excellent platform for religious leaders to come together to say, this is what we're doing to deliver life-changing healthcare. This is how we're feeding the hungriest. This is how we are managing to slow down the impacts of climate change. Religious communities are already doing that. And so what we have here is an opportunity not only to talk about what is already going on, but to talk about how we can scale that up and ramp that up.
The G20 makes decisions about our lives and our jobs that impact us almost as much as the oxygen we breathe. And so religious leaders from around the world are coming together to decide how do we bring these issues of poverty, of inequality, the environment to the G20 as they're making these particular decisions.
This is where faith finds its voice and gets to work. The Interfaith Forum isn't just a meeting place. It's a launch pad for action, where moral conviction shapes global policy and powerful ideas are put into practice.
If our faith does not lead to peace, what is it leading to? If our religious education does not teach respect, what is it teaching? If our morality is not lived, is it really morality at all?
Making these things work in reality is obviously much harder than having a good conversation. And often I come to these kind of conferences and I'm slightly concerned that everything's kind of staying in the room and there's not going to be any takeaway. I don't have that feeling actually about this event, because everyone I speak to here is committed to living this out in the world, to make this stuff real, to make a real difference.
I don't like all the talking, but I like that we walk the talk. If we agree that this is what we'll be doing, then we should do it.
Ultimately, why the religious community is gathered here is to move the G20 to move policies that benefit all of us.
There's a reality that we are about to face.
The time has come for us to stop looking for reason to divide.
The work of interfaith has been more urgent than ever before.
So the question of today is that what are we doing about it?
I want to make sure that we are identifying, articulating, and spotlighting faith-based insights to commonly held problems. We deal with education, we deal with health, we deal with human trafficking, we deal with issues for women and children, we deal with peacemaking, we deal with things that are common to the human experience and that are held in our hearts.
IF20 this year have selected 5 priorities. We want to get to a place where we find practical solutions that are clear and that will have an impact.
Today, we face 2 famines, and the moral call associated with them has nothing to do with politics, but everything to do with our common humanity.
First and foremost, which we see as a major contribution of religious communities, is fighting hunger and poverty and dealing with the solutions to the issue.
Every day, millions of people go to sleep and wake up hungry. And that number, for the first time in my lifetime, is actually increasing. Think of one hungry child, but then think more broadly of a vast number of 735 million people who are affected by hunger. It gives you the sense of the scope of the crisis we're facing. It is more than a child that is hungry. The issue is not how can we grow more food with a technical solution. The issue is a moral one. Why should we be concerned about those who do not have enough food? Why should we care about individuals in a conflict on a losing side who may be facing a famine or acute hunger?
Food security is about a dignity. It's not really a political thing.
Those questions, those moral questions about our dignity of humanity come at the heart of all faith traditions. And we must remind governments that no government, that no people should tolerate the level of hunger that exists in the world today. We must look at the systematic basis for why these populations are vulnerable or excluded within different areas. We know that we need to improve the access to food, that there is enough food in the world, and that the challenge in front of us is how to provide that food to those who are most vulnerable.
The main theme I'm hearing from the conference here is, yes, we need to help people to eat, have food on their table, but we need to help them to become self-reliant as well.
We cannot simply look away and say that 735 million people need to stay hungry on this earth.
The second issue, which is a core mandate of the G20, is international financial architecture, and especially the debt burden that's a weight on so many poor countries.
Africa has one of the largest mineral investments, but we don't benefit from them.
Around the world right now, we have lost decades of development, and the Sustainable Development Goals at this moment are completely out of reach to us.
We're currently facing a debt crisis in Africa. And what does this mean? 30 countries are having to pick between paying for teachers' salaries, healthcare workers' salaries, or paying debt. In a country like Kenya, 70% of tax revenue is spent on debt repayment. More money flows out of Africa, paying for debt, than what is coming in. African countries pay 500% more than countries in other parts of the world for debt, linked to a risk premium that is based on bias, a risk premium that is based on poor data. So when we talk about a debt crisis, we say it's an unfair debt crisis because no country should have to choose between paying for life-saving medicines, providing for its citizens, versus paying back loans that were unfairly given. Citizens must have a voice in the debt that their governments take. We are also calling, as we've discussed today, for faith leaders, civil society leaders, and business leaders to be part of those discussions and to have ownership and a say in how this debt is negotiated and how it's restructured.
We have had a history where loans were supposed to build bridges, but they built palaces. But with debt relief, what we're able to find, because of the serious reviews, is that this type of economic aid, when given to a country, goes directly to social programs. And it's why we've developed policies on debt relief that can be highly monitored. It's why we know that 52 million kids are going to school in sub-Saharan Africa who never would have seen the inside of a classroom without debt relief.
Debt is not bad. Debt drives growth, but it has to be used in investment options like infrastructure investment, energy investment, investment to build health economies, as opposed to consumption. No African child should be born into a country that is facing debt distress, and we believe that this is the time to act.
Third issue, because climate change is so important, we're focusing on disaster preparedness and prevention and response.
All of us here, we have been, in one way or another, we have been impacted by the climate change.
Many of the crises that people experience during the course of their lives will be what you would call emergency preparedness, disaster relief. It could be a pandemic. It could be some sort of a natural disaster. It could be something climate related.
And I think that's what churches and similar organizations, bring in, is that timely help.
It looks like preparing for the disaster beforehand. And we can also include nature-based solutions to mitigate the risk and the damage from that disaster. And faith organizations are the local implementers.
We do collaborate on many humanitarian projects in the health, education areas, emergency relief. But then as we've been listening to in this conference, and that's what the church believes in, we do both answer to the immediate needs, but then we work on helping people to become self-reliant.
Focus on prevention, building resilience, and meaningful capacity to respond.
A fourth issue that we're dealing with is vulnerability, and particularly the people who are left behind, the poorest, including people who are trafficked, refugees, and others.
Migration is an integral part of humanity, yet it remains an area fraught with injustices.
We live at a time where there are 100 million displaced people in our world. And so while lots of people don't want to talk about migration or want to ignore it or resist it, the reality is it is here and it is here to stay.
Of all of the topics that I've had the opportunity to participate in these discussions in our forum here, I think the most painful has been the human trafficking. It's not a topic that I even, in the context of this conversation, can bring up easily without becoming emotional.
Faith goes much further than a border. Faith is a global thing, and it has a global mission, which is to make a better world.
For many of our faith communities, a fundamental tenet of what it means to be a person of faith is to welcome, particularly to welcome the stranger, to welcome the vulnerable, to welcome the widow or the orphan. And so our faith communities have long existed around the world as communities of welcome.
And we all can recognize, regardless of context or country or color, who the vulnerable are among us. I've seen them. You've seen them. We're called to reach out to them.
The vast majority is being done by the faith community. And a lot of it is being done in isolation without support of government. Trafficking across the globe is currently less than $1 billion from all countries together. If that is generating 236 billion in crime, it's an unfair fight.
I've been deeply moved by the work that our Catholic sisters are doing at the front lines to save particularly children and young women in a hands-on kind of a way, and also to hold them up as an example for the rest of us so that we can learn from that.
Firstly, make sure their communities are aware of this issue. Secondly, start to use the pulpit, start to use the church or the synagogue or the temple, wherever your faith is expressed. Start to use that as a place where you start talking about it. Start becoming a place of welcome so that trafficked victims can come forward and then know who you can contact and give safety to them.
This conference must call for the protection of people more than the protection of borders.
One of the things that faith communities can do is they can particularly help politicians and governments to create the kind of political support and the political will to do that. For politicians to make decisions, they need political support.
We come here knowing that the world is unequal, that there is injustice. We also come here from very different backgrounds and traditions, but it's only through work together, it's only through the solidarity of joint action that we can address the types of problems that the world's face.
The fifth issue is a much broader issue of social cohesion and dealing with divisions among religions and other, particularly through education that addresses understandings among different communities.
Research has shown that low levels of religious education and religious literacy can actually contribute to violence and violent extremism. The reason being that it's much easier for conflict entrepreneurs and certain political actors to instrumentalize and to spread misinformation about religion in ways that can mobilize communities for nefarious ends. But when folks have a better understanding of their own religious tradition and of other religious traditions, they're far less likely to fall prey to misinformation and rumors about religions, and far less likely to be recruited for different groups that are drawing on religious frames in order to legitimate violence.
We have to learn how to incorporate this diversity, to incorporate this consciousness of being part of global humanity, in which we all have to work together for the common good to face the global challenge we have together, collaborating with one another.
You need the education that's happening within religious communities to draw from the values of one's own religious tradition, to be able to challenge some of the ways in which religion is driving prejudice. And at the same time, it is also important to be developing the relationships and to be developing understanding across religious difference as well. And that, again, can help to mitigate some of the misinformation that is happening.
South Africa is such a beautiful example of what it means to build interreligious and interfaith communities. Within the anti-apartheid movement, we had a lot of faith organizations, different faiths coming together to fight up against, what was a system of oppression. At the core of our faiths is that there is, the values of love, of compassion, of generosity, of caring, and of justice.
We have the responsibility to act. So with words and ideas and experience, I think we all leave with a powerful sense of what we can do and what we must do together.
After chaos, there always comes change. And how this change looks like, it's up for us to decide. And we are at this turning point where it is time to bring change. Ambition means nothing without action. And action is easier when you remember that you're not alone.
I think there is a big challenge because actually we're a small community and we need religious communities NGOs and governments to take this stuff seriously and to do it en masse. And I think that's the big challenge for the IF20. How do we scale this? How do we amplify this? How do we make sure that what we talk about here, that we're also committed to, becomes the reality for the majority of humanity?
My hope is that everyone walks away from this conference with a sense of urgency to do something in their communities.
When I think of the things that I've seen around the world, the work that people do, and they live in very difficult situations so they can help someone else. I couldn't do that. I couldn't go and live there. I couldn't work in that day in, day out. But what I can do is try and help them to make their work more valuable by upping the scale of it. And that's what they always ask for. They don't ask for me to turn up and roll my sleeves up. They say, can you go back and make sure that there is more being done to prevent this?
The only way that we're going to be able to tackle the greatest challenges of our time, the only way we're going to be able to have solutions on poverty is by working together.
I think we all leave with a powerful sense of what we can do and what we must do together.